I don't know. I don't think I can tell him this. Do I really have to? So here's the situation. Fascinating morning. It's 6:30 a.m. Uh, it's my birthday today. I'm 54 years old, and I really hate having birthdays in my 50s. It's not a celebration the way it was when I was a little kid, and death was not even on my radar screen when I was 5 years old, which is how old my twin daughters are. I don't know. What was death? I think I saw a woman at a 7-Eleven in a stretcher, and I had this vague notion that if you're on a stretcher and they're carrying you out of a 7-Eleven, that might be death. But I mean, that was about as clear as my notion of death got. But at 54, when you're having a birthday and you're 54 years old, uh, it has about all the celebration of being on hold with customer service and you're waiting for the Grim Reaper. And you know how every 10 minutes a customer service agent robot voice says, you know, your wait is this much shorter. And that's pretty much where I'm at with having a birthday here, being 54 years old. So this morning, it's 6:30. It's payday for Francisco. Now, I don't want to call Francisco my gardener. It sounds presumptuously imperialist. But he does do gardening around my house, and he's been doing it for a long time, over 10 years, maybe closer to 15 years. And we talk so much. I would consider him a friend, and he's my age. And I'm telling him it's my birthday this morning. I don't know why I told him. I think I wanted him to tell me how old he is. It turns out he's the same age as I am, and I was sharing with him my misgivings about having a birthday at the age of 54. And he's so different than I am. Maybe that's why I love him. I need to be around people who are the opposite of me. And Francisco says, Jeff, death is fine. It's part of God's perfect plan. You die, I die, and that makes room for all the new people. It's beautiful. And all you have to do is realize that you and I have about 20 more good years left, and we just have to live every day like it's our last day. And friends of the international YouTube community, I completely agree with Francisco about how you should live every day as if it's your last. I just don't know how to do it. I mean, I'm not walking around the house in a bathrobe eating Pop-Tarts and Hot Pockets, so that's good. I made breakfast for my daughters, and I told them that I love them this morning. That's good. But I mean, I can't give you a prescription for what it means to live every day as if it's your last. It may have less to do with the specific actions you do throughout the day and more to do with your attitude. And if that's the case, I don't know what I'm going to do. My attitude is rather bilious, dyspeptic, and morose. So I really can't give you any information to help you understand what it means to live every day as if it's your last. But I agree with Francisco there. And but what I do know about, and this is the topic of today, is the quest for upward mobility in America and in the context of going to college, because I've been teaching community college. Well, I taught at Cal State for 7 years, but combined with community college, I've been teaching for about 30 years. And what I want to talk about is this dream of upward mobility. This is what we, the college, sell you. If you support colleges, and you do with your tax dollars, you know, you're doing so because you believe we are helping to facilitate the dream of upward mobility. How viable is that dream? I don't know if you want to hear this. If you don't want to hear it, you don't have to. But I'm going to tell you the truth anyway. Since I went to college in 1979, which is 35 years ago, 36 years ago, inflation has gone up almost 1,200%. It costs you 12 times more. So my mother was single at the time. She didn't have a lot of money, but I was able to go to Cal State, and it was $78 a quarter. But you, if you're a millennial, you're going to be saddled with a lot of debt. And it's going to take you 10 years on average just to get on your feet after you get out of college. It's going to take you to the age of 30, according to the studies, to reach the national median income, just to be in the median income. What is that? Is there some kind of I hear a plane. I think it's doing a surveillance of me on my 54th birthday. The the thing is, you want to get your bachelor's degree no matter what, unless you're a rare tech freak. If you're like a Steve Jobs or a Bill Gates or one of these tech freaks, you need to get your bachelor's, because the studies show that if you don't, you're very vulnerable to getting a job in the number one growing sector of work in America, which is the temporary workforce. Temporary jobs, 90% of them are jobs from hell. You get no rights, you get no long-term investment in who you are, you don't get any medical benefits. The company that hires you is not even liable for any harm that comes to you, because you're usually hired through a subcontractor. They take the exposure. It's a complete canard, this temporary work system. It's the number one growing work system in America. Don't get punked by being forced to take a temporary job. Get your degree. Get it at a Cal State to keep your costs down. If you have to, so be it. Now, let's get to the scary numbers about achieving upward mobility. This is devastating. In America, we love to believe that, you can start at a low social class and go higher. Well, what percentage of you are? 8%, less than 10% of you are. According to studies, if you are in the lowest 1/5 quintile income bracket, the chances of you going into the highest 1/5 are 8%. That's lower than a lot of European countries, even though they don't see themselves as being so socially upwardly mobile. We like to say we are. The facts don't bear that out very much. So you need to know that fact as you go to college. Only 8%. The other devastating thing you need to understand is, of all the students going to college, 45% of them go to community colleges. Of those 45%, 80% aspire to get a bachelor's degree. Of that 80%, only 11% do get that bachelor's degree. That's very low success rate, and we need to understand why that success rate is so low. And I'm going to give it to you right now. To me, going to a community college is like this urgent way to make up for all this lost time from public school. For many of us, and myself included, public school was an abysmal failure where you did not learn basic literacy and math skills. And so what's happening is you're getting 18-year-old students who are having huge deficits in literacy and math, and they're being asked, and we are being asked as teachers, to make up for all that lost time, and it's not happening, obviously. 11%? That's not high. That's not a high percentage at all. That's an abysmal failure. That's like 90% of people going to community colleges aspiring to get a bachelor's aren't making it. That's horrible. So with these huge deficits, from a composition instructor point of view, here's what I can tell you. Grammar is kicking the students' butts. They don't have a clue what a comma splice is, what a run-on sentence is, what noun-pronoun agreement is. And if they do understand in the class, as we go over the exercises in class, they have a very low application to their own papers. And what happens is they go from remedial English to freshman English to the higher levels like English 1C, which I teach critical thinking. What I'm seeing is the grammar problems remain. They're just stubborn. They're like a rash, like a virus. They're like herpes. They don't go away. And I'm telling you, I have smart students who are frustrated because I circle all these errors. I go over the problems on the overhead projector, and then the next essay is turned in, and it's the same problems over and over again. I will tell you, I didn't understand grammar. I could never learn it in the classroom. When I was about 20 years old, I did buy a grammar book, and I just read it by myself, and I taught myself grammar. I'm a self-taught person in that regard, and I guess the word for that, the fancy word for that, is autodidactic, if you want to know what that is. I tend to be very autodidactic. I'm a guy. I don't do very well sitting in a classroom behind a desk. I was a very restless, antisocial young man just sitting there wanting to get the hell out of the classroom. So the grammar is brutal, and that's number one. Number two, only about 25% of my students are proofreading their papers. If you don't proofread your papers, going through grammar lessons and writing lessons and the writing process is pretty much a waste of time, because you have to learn how to edit your own papers. You have to develop the professionalism to turn in a clean, polished manuscript. That's who you're competing against, people who know how to do that. For example, if you write a personal statement application to get into UCLA or USC, and it's not clean because you don't know how to proofread, the people who read that personal application are just going to throw your application away. You're done. And in the Darwinian universe, you got weaker, other people got stronger, and no one cares. So you got to proofread. I don't care if you have to like take a nap, wake up, drink a protein shake, build a ritual that allows you to proofread. Number three, the third reason why such a small percentage of students are having trouble doing well in the community college and then getting their bachelor's is that 90% of my students don't read. They don't like to read. They take no pleasure in reading. Either reading is boring, they tell me, or they don't have time to read, or they're too tired to read. And what I'm seeing is this millennial generation is growing up with smartphones, and their brains are very good with multitasking and being interrupted by all these social media messages. And I think the part of your brain that responds to images and consumerism is antithetical, opposite to the part of your brain that you just learn how to have the capacity to enjoy reading. A lot of my students don't enjoy reading. For me, there are some books that I've read, they were the highest forms of human experience I've ever had. I don't think a lot of my students have had that experience at all. And they're not reading. So think about it. You're going to college. You have huge grammar deficits. You don't proofread, and you don't read what's on the syllabus. This isn't just me talking. All the instructors at my college are saying the same thing. There's even going to be a meeting about students not reading the assigned readings on the syllabus next month. It's huge. Number four, a lot of students, they don't have the sense of urgency in the classroom. There's a certain lethargy, a certain stupor. I feel that too many students, they're lost in the world of their smartphone. They and their smartphone have created this unhealthy symbiotic relationship whereby they've created an insulating bubble that separates them from the real educational world. And you got to have a sense of urgency. You have to understand that the world is Darwinian. You have to understand that the possibility, the probability for upward social mobility in America is very low. No one cares if you're stuck with a temporary job that has no benefits, where you're treated like a subhuman. You really have to understand the urgency and be willing to fight for yourself. If you're spending a lot of time on social media and on your smartphone, you're not fighting for yourself. You're dying. You're just lying yourself down on the asphalt and letting the cars run over you. You got to stop that. Now, some of my students, here's the fifth problem that a lot of students have. Some of my students, they do have a sense of urgency. They do understand the colossal task that they must face in terms of, for example, grammar deficits. You know what broke my heart 2 days ago? One of my freshman composition students, who was barely getting a C in my class, came to my office and says, I'm going to drop. I just can't understand the grammar. I don't even want to pass your class with my grammar deficits. I'm just going to do what you said. I'm going to get a grammar book. I'm going to read it every day for the next few months, and I'm going to retake your class again in a semester or two. That really broke my heart, because here's a young man who understands what's at stake. He understands his own deficits. In his case, he does have a sense of urgency, but what he must face is he's almost paralyzed by a sense of learned helplessness, by a sense of being overwhelmed by the task at hand, by being discouraged by those deficits. So I get a lot of students who are just so discouraged. Now, 35 years ago when I went to college, I suffered from a lot of the things that I said here, but there were some key differences that gave me some advantages. What I first want to say is because I didn't have the sense of urgency, because I was immature, because I didn't know what the hell I was doing, because I was more interested in working out at the gym, My first year, I received from Cal State a letter of warning. With the classes you dropped, with your low GPA, we're going to put you on probation if you don't turn this around. And that instilled in me this huge fear. And I really turned it around because I knew I had to either, to use a cliche, I either had to sink or swim. That was what way it was going to be. One of the advantages I had is that I'm a really good reader. My comprehension is excellent, and I've always enjoyed reading. And that really, because I was an English major, that really carried me through. Uh, Now, today, if I were 18 years old, I don't think I would be able to major in English, understanding the job market. I heard an NPR report a couple weeks ago that in the state of California, where I live, that in the next 15 years, there's going to be a huge demand for business, math, and engineering. Now, my father is a math genius. And, Dad, you didn't give me your math genius genes. You didn't give them to me. I mean, I can do some math, but I'm not as smart as you are when it comes to math. I'm a pretty good debater, as you know. I can argue. Probably could have been an attorney, but I have no interest in being working in the legal profession. But I would probably, if I were 18, I'd probably major in business. I mean, I'm just going to imagine being in the same situation I was in, having a single parent, living with my mom. I'd probably go to a Cal State. I'd major in business just to protect myself from not getting a temporary job, which is the fastest growing sector of work in America. That's horrible. So those are the odds. Those are the probabilities. Those are the problems students face. I know a lot about that. I'm working on learning how to live every day as if it's your last. I'm going to talk to Francisco again next week, and if I come up with any more wisdom, I'll share it with you. And until next time, I am out.